day before Thanksgiving in 1971, a man identifying himself as Dan Cooper bought a plane ticket from Portland to Seattle. He hijacked the plane, claiming he had a bomb in his briefcase, and demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes. He jumped out of the plane with the money and the bomb somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, never to be seen again. The FBI claims to have investigated over 1,000 people, including dozens of deathbed confessions. In 2016, 45 years after the hijacking, the FBI suspended its investigation of the case. While the FBI is no longer looking for D.B. Cooper, there is a community of people who are trying to solve the case on their own. Welcome to the Cooper Vortex. In this episode, we're lucky to be joined by Johnny Surles. Johnny is a veteran, a Mason, and retired lieutenant of the North Carolina Highway Patrol. He was directly involved in catching Richard McCoy Jr. and his cronies after their escape from jail and their bank robbery in North Carolina. Johnny is 100% certain that McCoy is Cooper. Also, Richard McCoy helped introduce Johnny to his wife in a roundabout way. Enjoy this episode with my good friend, Johnny Surles. Johnny, how old were you in 1971?
I was a young whippersnapper trooper. I was 21 years old.
21 years old, and what were you doing at the time?
Well, I just started patrol. No, I hadn't. I wasn't in patrol school. I got out of the military in early 71 and I got out of the military in 72. I was still in service in 71.
And do you remember hearing about the D.B. Cooper hijacking in 1971?
I did, but it was not a big thing to me at that time. Everybody was hijacking planes and going to Cuba, which I never understood because they were met with machine guns when they got to Cuba.
Yeah, and I suppose being a 20-year-old dude, you don't care that much about what's going on in the news on the other side of the country.
No, I was in Hawaii having a ball.
Oh, yeah, if I was in Hawaii, I wouldn't care much about the D.B. Cooper hijacking either.
Yeah, I was stationed in Hawaii then at that time.
And then after your military career, you became a state trooper, is that right?
Right, North Carolina. I was sworn in July 1st, 1972.
And how long did you work for the Highway Patrol?
28 years.
28 years. Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
What got you back into D.B. Cooper? When did you hear that again?
Well, in 1974, I was sitting in the county seat in Trenton on a Sunday night. I was a trooper working, and I was sitting beside another trooper, and we were just solving all the world's problems. And at that time, there was one stoplight. This was August the 12th, 1974. And there was one stoplight, and we were just sitting there talking. I was facing the stoplight, and my buddy was parking facing his back to the stoplight. We were just sitting in patrol cars talking. And I observed a light green Ford Fairlane pull up to the stoplight. Well, when you work a rural county, Jones County is a rural county. When you work in a rural county like this, you know most of the cars and the people. And that car didn't fit. I don't know why, but it didn't fit. And it didn't do anything. It wasn't driving fast, wasn't reckless or loud mufflers or anything. I didn't have a reason to do anything about it. But ironically, the next day, my partner saw it in his rearview mirror. And he thought the same thing, but neither one of us commented on it. Well, the next day I'm working, that was on a Sunday night. The next day I was working early shifts. I came into the town of Trenton, made a left, and as soon as I made a left in Trenton, I'm about 12 miles from Paulsville. And the radio station, my patrol radio station called me and told me the bank in Paulsville had just been robbed by 4 white males. Last seen headed Highway 17 north in a dark green Monte Carlo. Well, I turned and came, instead of going down Highway 58 to Paulsville because they were going north, I took a crossroad and was coming down a real paved 1002. And after about 5 miles, I meet the light green Ford Fairlane that I'd seen the night before. And I remember meeting, but I'm running blue light and siren, and I'm going to a bank robbery for dark green Monte Carlos. But I do remember meeting. When I got to Highway 17, I met another trooper from Craven County. He said they didn't come that way. He was on 17 when they gave the call out. So we turned around and went back toward the bank. And about 2 miles outside of town, we saw the dark green Monte Carlo parked abandoned beside an old shack. And of course, we got out and approached it. There was nothing there. So we, we kept that scene safe until the FBI could get there and process it. Luckily, we all meet up at the bank with the FBI, and fortunately for us, our highway patrol helicopter was close by that day. So, Darren, if you need to interrupt me and stop me, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm enjoying this.
Well, our patrol helicopter was nearby, and the chopper put 2 FBI agents and a trooper. I was on the ground in my patrol car with 2 FBI agents, and we had a deputy sheriff with that FBI agent and a ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agent. And our intentions are to go to the Code City area. This is where McCoy grew up, Richard Floyd McCoy. This is where he grew up. And because the FBI obviously thinks this is the perpetrator. And we get up there, and the first dirt road we turn on to the left is a loop road. It's about a mile long. And at the apex of that loop, there's a little bridge with a little canal there, probably 15 feet wide. There's a farm path on each side of that. And I was in the lead. When I got to the first farm path, Trooper Sullivan in the helicopter called me and he said, "Stop, I see them. They're on that first path." And what he saw was the green Ford Fairlane. They had parked the Ford Fairlane north of Paulsville and had stolen the night before the green Monte Carlo. They robbed a bank in the Monte Carlo and came back and got in the Ford Fairlane and left, so we'd be looking for a dark green Monte Carlo. But Sullivan could actually, before McCoy and the guy saw the helicopter, McCoy was at the left front, Havel was across the hood, and I can't remember the other guy's name, and Walker was beside McCoy. And McCoy was actually handing out the money. They were divvying up the money from the bank robbery. Well, they saw the helicopter, and Havel and the other guy ran. They ran east. The McCoy and Walker ran south. Well, I started to go up that path, and Sullivan told me no to go to the other path because those two were away. So I went over about 50 yards ago on that other path and turned left, went up in there. And Darren and I literally almost ran over them. They come running at him, and they said yes. So Richard got 2 pieces of evidence out of the locker, and he and another agent flew to North Carolina, went in the living room. There's McCoy's sister-in-law and mother-in-law sitting on a couch, and Richard and another agent sitting across from him. He reached in a manila envelope, and the 2 pieces of evidence was a black tie with a pearl necklace, pearl tie tack, not a necklace, but a pearl tie tack. And when they pulled it out, he said, "I want you to tell me if you know what this is." They pulled it out in unison. They said, "That's Richard's." Now this is what Cooper left on the plane. And in unison, they said, "That's Richard's." And Richard asked her, "How do you know?" And the sister-in-law said, "Because I bought it for him. It's the only tie tack he owned."
So the tie that was left on Flight 305 was Richard Floyd McCoy's tie?
Right. And tie tack.
And tie tack.
Yeah.
Why did his wife so aggressively go after people after he was accused of being D.B. Cooper as well? Because, I mean, there's no doubt that he committed that second skyjacking.
Yeah.
But she sort of went after people legally when they accused him of doing the first hijacking.
Yeah. She was involved in that. I was surprised she was never indicted. She took him to the airport on the hijacking. So, I mean, she's involved in it. She knew what he'd done. And I don't know if maybe she thought that if she took that stance that the law enforcement would leave her alone.
Do you think she encouraged him to do the hijacking?
I don't know because, and the reason I say that, they were having financial problems. The only money they had, she was working. I don't know where she was working, but Richard was only money Richard had coming in, and you know he was well, I don't know if you do or not. He was a student at Brigham Young,
Right.
and the only money he had was his military education was spent. He was only getting like $200 and some, and I don't know what she was getting, but they were having, and two kids, and at that time his sister-in-law was living with him too, two kids and a sister-in-law. So
it's a lot of people to feed for $240 a month.
It certainly is. Now, also there was a gas receipt for a fill-up for gas for a Volkswagen with McCoy's registration on it in Las Vegas the week of the Cooper hijacking.
Right, and what was McCoy doing in Las Vegas?
Well, I can tell you exactly what he was doing. This is the question I get asked all the time. Have you ever gambled at Las Vegas?
I have.
Have you big time? I mean, I don't get in your personal business there, but I mean, $1,000?
No, not at all. I actually, like McCoy, I grew up Mormon, so my view of gambling is sort of jaded that way. So the most I've ever gambled is like $20, which to me is big.
Well, let's say I got $200,000 in cash. I walk in a casino with $1,000 in my pocket, and I go up to one teller and I want $500
worth of chips.
Yeah, I want $500 worth of chips. She gives me the $500 worth of chips. I walk to the other side of the room to the teller on the other side and want to cash in my chips. He laundered $200,000 in Las Vegas that week.
Oh, you think he laundered the whole thing that week?
The whole thing. There was also a collect phone call made from the Tropicana Hotel in Las Vegas on Thanksgiving Day when he was supposed to be home eating, having lunch with them. There was a collect phone call from the Tropicana Hotel in Las Vegas to the McCoy residence.
Is there any other reason he would have been in Las Vegas?
No. No people, no relatives, no friends, nothing.
What do you think led him to the first hijacking? Do you think it was just struggling for money?
I think it was struggling for money, and like I said, he was a smart man. From what I've found out about him, he was smart, but he had some idiosyncrasies that, just why in the world would somebody like him use the same phone booth, knowing that they had that phone tapped? Well, he had to know it. I never understood why he would do things like that. And I'll tell you one other part. I don't know whether you heard about. There was a friend that he was talking to that told him that he had a foolproof plan.
Yeah.
He had a friend that, that friend was a Utah State Trooper.
Larry Patterson.
And when he told him that, he sort of passed it off. And when he found out about the hijacking, he called the FBI and said, "Look, you might want to talk to my neighbor down here." So that's what actually turned them on to McCoy.
I've read this book recently called Happy Valley. I'm going to butcher the subtitle here, but it's something like Mormons, Mafia, and Murder. And in that book, they accuse Larry Patterson of being D.B. Cooper and sort of mentored McCoy into doing the next hijacking. And then Patterson sort of frames McCoy for his own hijacking. So McCoy goes down for both and Patterson walks away.
McCoy is going to be the leader.
McCoy's the leader?
McCoy is the leader. He's not going to be a follower no matter what. That's one of the first things that jumps out at you. He's a leader. He's not going to be second in command. Matter of fact, little things, when he went to Lewisburg Penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, the first thing he done was made friends with Walker, Havel, and the other guy, I can't remember his name, but they were all under 6 feet. He wanted to be the biggest man. Now that's an observation from me. no scientific proof.
Yeah, it's interesting that he, you know, was Mormon and that he had this impressive military career. It seems
Yeah,
like such a good guy. He didn't have a criminal background that I'm aware of. So why do this?
yeah.
What made that switch in him?
Well, again, I think what you just said brings out that part that I keep going back to. He was a smart man, but then he'd go and do something off the wall. And, a smart man, but he decides to hijack an airplane.
Where do you think he came up with the idea?
He's probably, again, personal opinion, I think he probably had that on his mind a long time. Just reading and, he knew planes, and he probably read a lot of aviation magazines and, especially when he got to needing money when he was getting in a financial bind.
Yeah, and what do you think about this, Johnny? I've heard people say it's not McCoy because when he pulls off the copycat hijacking, it's so sloppy. But then I've also heard people say, you talk about being complacent. He got away with it the first time. So now it's the second time he's trying to execute his plan, but again, he's nervous about some things. He changed some things up this time, like a disguise. And so maybe he just thought he was going to get away with it right away.
Sounds just like him.
What do you think about the age gap, though? Because the stewardesses describe him as being in his mid-40s.
Yeah, I know you've looked at the pictures.
Oh, I definitely have.
I would hate to guess his age. All the pictures I've seen of him, I'd say anywhere from 33 to 48 to 50.
And then he did used to be a smoker. Is that correct? When he was in the military?
Yep, Raleigh filler tip cigarettes.
It's a good choice.
And guess what? Guess what they found on the plane? Raleigh filler tip cigarettes.
Do you think the bomb was real?
No. They found the hand grenade pin that he gave to the stewardess.
Mm-hmm.
They found that fake hand grenade in one of the duffel bags when they searched his apartment when they got the money.
Right, I believe it was sold as a paperweight, right?
Yeah. But no, he didn't have any bombs. No. He couldn't. He'd had to activate the bomb unless he had some kind of remote system. He was more concerned about getting out of that plane and being safe than he was blowing up.
So what do you think McCoy does? He jumps out of the plane. He hits the ground somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. What's his next move?
I don't know how he got out of there. I really don't. He's a survivalist. He proved he could do it. When he did it over Utah, he proved he could do it. And there is a dam up there. They said there's no lights. There is a dam that has lights on it that he could have used. Not a lot of people talk about that, but there is a dam in that area that he could have used as a reference point.
Right.
Here's another one of those little things, and I can't remember the guy's name now. The U.S. Marshal guy that was that actually was in charge of McCoy during McCoy's trial, said McCoy made the statement. There was a lot of talk, and this was on a break, that there was a lot of talk about the money that they found in the Columbia River and how it got upriver, upstream. You familiar with what I'm talking about?
Definitely.
Yeah, how it got upstream. Well, if you hold your hand out in front of you, you can go A at the top at 12 o'clock, B in the middle of the clock, and C at the bottom of the clock. And the river's flowing from C to A. He jumped out. When he jumped out at A, the wind stream carried him back. And he made this statement when they were talking about how the money got up there. He said, and nobody else would have known this but Cooper. McCoy made this statement to this guy that was had him in custody. He said, "You don't understand how hard that wind was blowing, and I was putting money in every pocket I had." So that's how the money got blowed out. He had money. He was clutching money in his hand and was stuffing it in his pockets. He was putting money everywhere. So that's how the money got blowed out, and the jet stream carried the money back to the Columbia River. And that's my opinion again there. But the fact that he made that statement, how would nobody else but Cooper would have known that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he fixed that the second time because he had another duffel bag. Well, he didn't have that duffel bag during the Cooper hijacking.
Yeah, exactly. I believe he asked for the money in a knapsack in the Cooper hijacking, and then got it in this weird bank bag where the top doesn't really secure.
Yeah.
Do you think that the flight path and the drop zone are accurate?
For
D.B. Cooper?
I don't know. I never, honestly, being focused on McCoy, I never looked at that good. Hey, he was dead on the Utah one.
Yeah, do you think that's a lesson he learned from the first one, that he needs to give him more flight instruction?
I think so. And he did some other things too that he's on a lesson learned. You know, in the Cooper hijacking, he had the stewardess sit beside him, and she was eyeballing him for evidence purposes. In the McCoy hijacking, he made her sit in the seat in front of him so she couldn't look at him.
Definitely. I always liked that he sent the pin for the grenade in the note. I always thought that was such a bold move.
Yeah. But I don't think there was any explosives at all. Oh, I know I was going to tell you. Now, when you talk with Steve says and I think Steve sort of leans that way a little bit. He says around Salt Lake City, McCoy is a quote Robin Hood. That, he says he's almost a cult figure, and he may be a cult figure, but and Steve said this. Steve said when he shot at your helicopter, he could have hit the helicopter. He was an expert marksman, but undoubtedly Steve don't do much shooting because he's got a small .38 pistol trying to hit a moving helicopter, and a half a mile away from him, you're not going to hit it. I don't care how good you are. You shoot the pistol at a helicopter a half a mile away, you're not going to hit it.
Yeah, it's a tall order. Why do you think this case doesn't get the attention it deserves?
I don't know. And Richard Floyd, we had that conversation 1,000 times. Richard gave everything he had to the agent that relieved him and told him there's no doubt in his mind that Richard Floyd McCoy and D.B. Cooper are one and the same.
Right.
And why? I don't know. I have no idea why the FBI. I sometimes ask why the FBI does a lot of things, but when they broke out of prison, it was obvious who the ringleader was. The FBI never told us. Law enforcement in North Carolina, they never told us anything. They notified Tennessee because they thought they were going to Tennessee. We had no idea. Tennessee knew that was where Walker was from. Tennessee knew they broke out. They never told us. We never got a word about it.
Why do you think people discredit McCoy?
Well, he's a thief for one thing, and that's a fact. We know for a fact he's a thief. He robbed banks. He stuck a .38 pistol in my wife's back and told her this was a bank robbery. That's why I discredited. He's a thief.
Why do you think some people don't believe he's Cooper?
I think it's that following. Maybe following is following in the cult, same thing, I guess. But the Robin Hood image. Robin Hood was still a thief any way you look at it. I think that's probably what it is. Undoubtedly, by your phone call to me, touching base with me, it's a lot more popular thing out in Salt Lake City and Utah in that area there than it is here. Of course, now I'm sitting here in my living room. As the crow flies, I'm probably 9 miles from McCoy's grave. So there's a whole pile of McCoy and everybody over in that Code City area. Everybody's kin to everybody. But the only time you hear Richard McCoy's name is if somebody asks me about it or if I give a program about it.
And you do present speeches on McCoy and Cooper, right?
Yeah, I got a PowerPoint that I do.
And where can people see that?
I had a feeling that was sometime this evening I was going to hear, Johnny, could you send me a copy of that PowerPoint? I can get you a copy of it.
Cool. Do you think I could share it with my audience as well?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, and of course I'll give you credit for it and everything. But what really got you into presenting about Cooper?
Well, I realized that that this was Cooper and McCoy were one and the same. We got looking at it and looking at the pictures, and then my wife being involved in it there in the bank, and me being capturing two of his compadres. Just got interested, and I kept following up on it, and I would tell the story, with a bunch of guys sitting around, and somebody would say, "Hey, Johnny, tell us about McCoy," and I'd tell it, and I told him a long time, in an unofficial, official is not a good word, I guess, but I told him a long time, just shooting the breeze with people. And then one day I got thinking, I said, I'm going to put a PowerPoint together and do this. So I put a PowerPoint together, and I'm going to tell you, it was sort of weird. I was working one night, and I said, it'd be nice if I could get that. Because when I talk about the Ford Fairlane that I saw in Trenton that night, I'd always look around the room and try to find some type of light green, no matter where I was at. I could never find anything to tell them what color that car was. The evening that I was working on that PowerPoint, I said, well, let me just try something. I flipped over to Google and I typed in 1965 Ford Fairlane. Boom. There was what looked like the exact car they were driving. I did the same thing to the Monte Carlo, and there it was. I got a picture of both of those in
there. Nice.
Now, let me tell you this. I'm going to send you my PowerPoint, and you may be able to pick up on it based on the conversation we're having now, but a lot of it are pictures that you won't know what it is. You might be able to figure out because of what we've talked about, but you can call me and ask me if you got a question about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you pay any attention at all to some of the other suspects in the case?
Yeah, I'll read it and push it aside. So most of it's funny.
Who do you think is the worst suspect that gets attention?
Well, there was a woman that said she was McCoy.
Barbara Dayton.
Yeah.
The first transgender, the first person to undergo gender reassignment surgery in Washington State.
Yeah.
It's a pretty wild story.
Yeah, I can't remember the other. There's one other guy that he was one of the ones. Several of the people actually looked like him. I can't remember their names.
Why do you think McCoy hijacked the second plane?
Oh, he got good. Just like he told his neighbor, "This is a foolproof." He got away with it. He had 6 or 8 months there. He could learn and study and figure out what he did wrong. I mean, if you think about it, the second one, if the neighbor hadn't called, McCoy would probably be alive today. Well, he probably wouldn't, but he'd have done something else. But if the neighbor hadn't talked about it and called the FBI, I don't think they would have. There's no reason to focus on McCoy. One other thing too, is going back to McCoy, after the Cooper hijacking, as much of a financial bind as they were in, FBI found records where he bought 4 new tires to go on his vehicle, and he took the whole family on a trip to North Carolina.
That's right, the North Carolina trip.
Yep, and that was after the Cooper hijacking.
Why do you think none of that money ever turned up in circulation?
That's a question I get asked all the time, but think about it. You go back to my theory about Washington and Las Vegas. FBI have all the numbers, but what's the odds of somebody sitting down and looking at every $20 bill that they get their hands on. I mean, that sounds good on TV, but in real life, that's not a viable option. You can't. How many $20 bills are already in circulation right now?
There were hundreds of millions of the same bills that Cooper
Yeah.
got in circulation.
Yeah, and they had no reason to do anything in Las Vegas. That money, and people go to Las Vegas from all over the world. Again, to be so smart, how can you be so dumb? You're there. Why make collect phone call to your house? Why buy gas with a credit card? You got $200,000.
That's a great question. Yeah, if your Volkswagen is filled with cash, why are you using a credit card to buy fuel?
Yeah. Again, so smart, but would do dumb things.
Do you think it would have been too risky to use a 20 that night to buy fuel?
No. He's what, 500 miles away from Washington State? 400, 500 miles?
Do you think he had an accomplice or he acted alone?
Well, he had his wife helping him on that. Now, I don't know who helped him on the first one. She probably did. One other thing, and you probably know this, in case anybody's listening, don't believe anything I've said, or and you think the body is up in the northwest part of the United States. Keep in mind it's under about 15 feet of volcanic ash now. That's where Mount St. Helens covered everything up, where he supposedly landed.
Yeah, that definitely changed the scenery around there.
Yeah.
Johnny, what do you think of the fact that they have two different sketches of Cooper? They released one and then a year later a different one.
I didn't know there was a second one.
Yeah, there are two versions of the Cooper sketch, two main versions, I should say. There's the sort of black and white Bing Crosby looking one, and then there's the colored in sort of Cary Grant sketch.
I've seen so many of them. I know that when you said Bing Crosby, because there is one that sort of looks like Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
And I still had it somewhere. I can't find it. I just happened to look on the eBay about a month ago, and I found a McCoy wanted poster, FBI wanted poster. It was $500. And I got one around the house here somewhere. I don't know where it's at.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I don't have that. I have a D.B. Cooper wanted poster, but I don't have a McCoy wanted poster.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get one of those. I'm jealous of that.
Well, you need to come out to North Carolina, and I'll give you a real live show.
I'll have to do that sometime.
And I'd give anything to go. And you and Steve and I sit down and talk. But Steve's got a lot of stuff about the judge that I don't know how much you and he have talked, but he's got a lot of stuff about the judge you're gonna love.
Oh yeah, and the FBI agent that shot McCoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to Steve.
Yeah.
Do you think that the fact that there are so many suspects in this, that it's muddied the waters too much and this thing's never going to be solved?
I don't think the FBI will ever say it's done. And again, I'm just my opinion. I am 100% convinced they are one and the same. I can never think of a reason, and I asked Richard Floyd McCoy, why won't they admit they're one and the same? And he said he didn't have any idea. I just don't know. There's nothing to lose. It would be big news for a week, and then it would be done, over with.
Yeah, they had him in custody. Why couldn't they pin the first hijacking on him?
Yeah, I know DNA was not like it is today, but they had to tie something to him. And
what would have been the difference in his sentence if he copped to being Cooper?
He'd have been fine on that two separate trials.
But he was sentenced to 45 years, right?
Right.
45 years when you're 30 years old is a really long time.
Yeah, it's almost life.
It's almost life. Is there much of a difference between two 45-year sentences and one?
Two, and federal time is 45 years. If you're doing federal 45 years, you're doing 45 years.
I just wonder about that. Like, it's not like the FBI doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they have McCoy doing a similar hijacking. They have him in custody. Why couldn't they link him to the first one?
I have no idea. It's $1 million question. No idea.
I heard a rumor once upon a time, and I don't know if you've heard this, but I heard that there was some sort of a BYU medallion that was found. Have you heard that before?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably untrue, but I've heard a lot of untrue things, but I heard once that there was like a secret BYU medallion that was found that McCoy left on 305 on purpose with the tie. But if the FBI had that, then his case closed.
Yeah. Well, they got 2 eyewitnesses that said that the tie and the tie tack, she said she bought the tie tack. That's probably, the tie and the tie tack probably grew into a BYU medallion.
What was he studying at BYU? Do you know?
Criminal justice.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
Criminal justice.
Boy, he sure learned a lot about criminal justice, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. You know he escaped in St. Louis on the way back?
With the garbage truck?
No. Before when they sentenced him in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, the FBI, why didn't they fly him back? They drove him cross country. And he told that when the judge sentenced him, he asked him, did he have anything he wanted to say? And McCoy stood up and said, yes, Your Honor, you don't have a prison that will hold me. I will escape. And on the way back in Salt Lake City, he stopped to go in the bathroom. There was a homeless person in there. He changed clothes with him and took off. They gone about an hour, but they got him.
What a slippery guy.
Yeah.
In that, back to Larry Patterson for a second, I just thought of this. In this Happy Valley book, it says that when McCoy is charged with this, he said that he did not want to go to prison in Utah, that it would be bad for him. Have you heard that before?
No.
Why didn't he go to prison in Utah?
I wondered that too. We have a federal prison in Butner, and actually that's the first time it's ever crossed my mind about that he didn't go to prison in Utah, which he should have. But I've often wondered, and the reason I was given was it was close to home. But if he wanted to get close to home, Cove City, they'd have put him in Butner, which is near Durham. But no, that's interesting. The first time I ever thought about why they didn't, I just thought they were trying to get him close to home.
Well, in Happy Valley, they theorize that it's because Larry Patterson had some contacts in law enforcement, and that McCoy would have been fearful of Patterson. But I mean, McCoy also had family in Utah, so if it was about being close to family, if I'm going to get locked up, I'd prefer my wife and kids come visit me, I guess, than my parents.
Well, I think by the time they went to trial, she had already moved back to Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Now, I will tell you this. I think Richard told me this. Walker, who was closest of those 4 robbers, Dan Walker was the closest to McCoy. And after he got out of prison, he was a good old boy, and the FBI took a liking to him, and they did a lot of talking to him. And Walker said that they would ask McCoy, "Are you Cooper?" And he never replied. He would look the other way. He never replied. He never said, yes, or y'all shut up. Yes, I'm him. Y'all shut up. No, I'm not him. He would look the other way or get up and walk out of the room. He never replied the first time to those 3 when they would ask him, was he Cooper?
Why wouldn't he cop to it? He already got caught for the second one.
Who knows? Smart man, but so dumb.
There is one other Utah suspect that I'm aware of. Wolfgang Gossett. Have you heard that name before?
because it's such an odd name. I've heard it, but I'm not familiar.
He was in the ROTC as an officer, I believe, and worked at a college nearby, was Mormon. So I've always sort of wondered if it was possible that Wolfgang and McCoy knew each other on some level. It's kind of a stretch, I know, but...
Yeah. What was Wolfgang's background?
He was kind of a crazy guy, survivalist. He was a priest. He performed exorcisms. He was a radio show host. He was interested in the paranormal, sort of a con man, but LDS at one point in time.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, it goes back to his personality. It sounds like somebody McCoy would be attracted to, but then again, it sounds like somebody he wouldn't be attracted to.
Are you very familiar with the Mormon religion?
No, not a whole lot.
Are you aware of anyone from his church when he got caught? I mean, what was the reaction there?
No, I have no idea. There's very few Mormons here in this area. There's a few.
So that might be a question for Steve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He can answer that.
Do you think this will ever officially be solved, the Cooper case?
No.
Why is that?
I wish I knew. There's no reason for it not to. You know, even if you were, I'm 100% sure in my mind that they're one and the same. But the FBI has nothing to lose or to gain. I think they probably have something to gain. They can close that case, but I don't think it'll. I think somebody will be having this conversation you and I are having years from now.
Well, we've been talking about it for almost 49 years now. So,
yeah.
Do you think that the FBI believes it was McCoy, but they don't have that smoking gun? They're just shy of being able to prosecute him for it.
Well, why not come out and say it? I mean, they can't prosecute him. Why not come out and say it? You know, we've got this evidence that here it is. I don't know. I don't know why they won't.
I don't know. It'd be interesting if they did that, but then it sort of goes out to the court of public opinion instead of it actually going to court. So I don't know if the FBI would do that, would they?
Obviously not. Obviously not going to do it because they haven't done it.
Do you think McCoy would have done this a third time if he wasn't caught?
Absolutely.
Really? You think he would have been like a serial air pirate?
Yeah. And he'd probably got killed. You know, he was 2-0. Law of averages is going to catch up with him.
Especially with that many people looking for him.
Yeah. But, you know, he learned the second time, he threw the parachutes out. They had the tracking devices in them. He was smart enough to figure they were probably going to do that this time.
Why do you think he brought a gun the second time?
I would think probably he may have had a run-in that first time, like the guy that gave him the ride. And he might have brought it for that protection. Or, you know, where you going to land, what kind of animals you going to run into.
Yeah, and it's possible he had a gun the first skyjacking. We just don't know because he never pulled it out.
Yep.
So how do we solve this case now, Johnny? Me and you. How do we solve it?
You're going to believe my side of the story and say, we've solved it.
I actually really like that answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I don't think there's an answer to it. I mean, if you know, I can present my thinking. Richard turned over a whole room full of evidence, and they didn't believe him. And you know, Steve's got all kind of evidence. Man, I wish I could get with you two. It'd be interesting. But he's got all kind of evidence. He's got some things that about the judge that is really convincing. One thing in particular, and he'll tell you about it. I'm not going to repeat it. I'll let him tell you. Be sure and ask him about the guy in the platoon next to McCoy in the Vietnam. What his name was.
Oh, come on, Johnny. Just tell me. Have you ever been on some of the internet forums or discussion boards about D.B. Cooper?
One or two of them. I hadn't been probably in a year or more. Every once in a while, I look and see, I just type the name in and see what's going on, if there's anything new coming up. And you got to remember, too, that since 1972, 74, when this happened, it used to be about once or twice a year, people would, like you, would find out about it, or somebody writing a book or doing a TV series or something, or just an article, information. They would call and want to speak to my wife because she was in the bank that day that got robbed. And she never talked to him, but she don't want to talk. She won't talk about it. But she'll say, my husband will talk. And she'll give me the phone. So about now, it's been, what do we say, 49 years?
Yep, it'll be 49 years this November.
Now it's about maybe once a year or something like that. I'll get somebody call me and tell me the DB, the Cooper McCoy's things on TV. You can turn it on. And I do my talk. I'm a Mason, and we have a speakers bureau, and that's how you contact the speakers bureau.
That is how I found you.
Yeah, and I travel around the state, and sometimes we give Masonic programs, and we give non-Masonic programs. And everybody, there's no telling how many times I gave this thing last year, and would have this year if it hadn't been for the virus. But I'll probably average that PowerPoint 10 to 15 times a year.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I appreciate you keeping the D.B. Cooper story alive.
Yeah. Oh, everybody loves it. Yeah. I don't care what age group everybody knows D.B. Cooper, and the hands will go up.
Do you mind telling us about your wife running into McCoy at the bank?
Oh, no. She was, you walk in the front door, and to the left was the bank president's office.
Do you remember what bank it was?
It was Bank of America, Bank of North Carolina back then. And if you look to your right was the teller line, and they had probably 4 tellers. It was a small bank. Well, they come in, and she's facing in the president's office, standing in the doorway, leaning against the door. And McCoy goes up behind her and puts the gun in her back. And she thought the druggist down the street, Bill Allen, he was all the time cutting the fool with the girls in the bank. She thought it was Bill Allen. She said, Bill Allen, what are you doing? She turned around and looked, there he was with an orange face mask on. They all had orange face masks.
And your wife was an employee there?
Yeah. And they told him it was a bank robbery, and they put him in the vault. The vault wouldn't close. It had a safety switch on it, so it wouldn't close. And, of course, as soon as they all ran out, they went and looked out the window and got the dark green Monte Carlo. And that's how it went down.
And when did your wife tell you about this? I assume you were at work at the time.
Yeah, I was at work. Well, when I got to the bank, after we got the Monte Carlo in custody, we used the bank boardroom as sort of a headquarters until we, got set up in Cove City.
So how did you find out about the bank robbery? Was it a call that came over your radio?
Yeah.
And you knew right away, hey, that's my wife's bank.
Well, no, I'd never met her.
Oh, you hadn't met your wife yet?
Yeah, we met during the bank robbery.
Oh, my gosh, that's great.
That's what I was talking about that night in shining armor on the white stallion. I saved the day.
Wow. So you go to the bank, and we'll just call your wife Sally. And you meet Sally there at the bank, and you two got married. How long after that?
Oh, probably 5 years.
5 years after that. So you guys have Richard Floyd McCoy to thank for your marriage.
Absolutely.
That is great. I love that story, Johnny.
Yeah.
So thanks to D.B. Cooper, you two met each other.
Yep.
Was she traumatized by that?
Not really, but she was robbed 1, 2, 3, 4 times in her career. It's sort of getting to be old hat to her.
I guess so. Do you guys talk about DB Cooper, or is she not interested in it really?
She knows I do the talks, that I travel doing that. And she's heard it a million times. We'd be on a trip with somebody and somebody, oh, Johnny, tell us that story. So she's heard it 1,000 times.
That's her cue to roll her eyes and walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife does the exact same thing. Gosh, that's a great story. Why do you think so many people have confessed to being Cooper?
It's a big thing. Publicity. It's all fun and games till the judge drops the gavel, and then it's not fun anymore.
Right. It was fun to pretend right up until that point.
Yeah. Okay, I see the 2 pictures you were talking about now.
Do you think McCoy picked the name Dan Cooper from the comic book?
It wasn't from a comic book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Another piece of evidence is he gave the directions on where to park the plane, how many people to fuel the plane, which side to park the fuel truck, what runway, told the speed, told the flaps, basically gave him a flight plan. McCoy and Cooper did the same thing, you know that.
Oh, yeah. How do you think he knew that the rear stairs could be lowered in flight?
He had done his homework.
Do you think it could have been something he saw in Vietnam?
Probably. Here's a bulletin from the FBI, and then the next slide is the plane, the 727. The next slide is the back of the plane with the steps coming down. I got a copy of the note that he gave one of the stewardesses.
Yeah, because McCoy left his, the second time, I should say, he left his notes on the plane.
And the thing he tore off that brown paper bag and wrote, "Take off now, we'll blow up the plane."
Yeah.
She gave that to the pilot. He gave it back to her. She threw it in the trash. And then about 10 minutes later, she thought about it, went and got it and put it in her bra.
Good move.
You know where McCoy was the day they went to his house? The first day they went to his house looking for him?
No.
He was flying a helicopter for the Utah National Guard looking for him.
I did know that, actually. I did know that. He was flying a helicopter looking for himself. Yeah. I did know that. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. He had to have just the biggest smile on his face when he was doing that.
Yeah.
To be involved in the search for yourself is pretty cool.
Yeah. This slide showing the prison, there's corn. Corn came all the way up to the prison fence back in 1974. And that was one of McCoy's thinking too, about 6 foot tall. He didn't want anybody taller than him, but he didn't want anybody that was over 6 foot because they could see him over the corn. He was already, in January, he was planning to escape in August. When he got there, he was already doing his planning, and he wanted to be able to get in that corn and nobody be able to see him in the corn.
So crazy that he said he was going to escape and then did.
Yeah. Larry Bagley was the one. Bagley and Howell, the 2 that I captured.
That's really cool that you were involved in this.
Yeah.
And it's how you met your wife, too, which is even cooler.
When you get this, I got a map of the county, and you'll see the town of Trenton, and you look north of Trenton, you'll see Cove City. Obviously, if you'll call me back, I'll explain to you what that map is, where everybody was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll share this with my audience as well. They'll be really excited about it. Have you ever talked to McCoy's wife?
No, she won't talk to you.
But you talked to his mother-in-law?
No, I'm sure she's dead. There's some aerial views in here too of the bank and of the town of Paulsville where they were at, and I'll have to talk you through those.
Yeah, I look forward to it. All right, Johnny. Well, if there's someone who disagrees with you or wants to tell you that you nailed it and got everything right, is there somewhere where they can reach out to you?
Yeah, give my email address, jsurles, JSURLES, at ec.rr.com. E. Edward C. Charles.
All right, well, thanks for coming on, Johnny. I really appreciate it.
All right, goodbye.
Bye. If you want to reach Johnny, you can hit him up at jsurles at ecrr.com. We'll have a link to that in the show notes for you as well. Is there a theory or angle you think we haven't covered yet? Let us know. You can find us on Facebook. We are The Cooper Vortex. Instagram at The Cooper Vortex. On Twitter at DB Cooper Podcast. Or email us, dbcooperpodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a review. Thank you to Johnny Surles for coming on the show. Thank you to Russell Colbert for always fixing my mistakes. I'm Darren Schaefer, and thank you for listening to The Cooper Vortex.